Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video, I'm talking about what it means to have Venus square to the Ascendant in Synastry. So, this aspect is very interesting in that there does seem to be a lot of love and emotion, maybe even more so with the square than the other aspects. But what often ends up happening with the square is that there's a certain amount of tension in expressing the affection. And so sometimes this aspect can show up in a relationship that doesn't get fully off the ground, or for whatever reason there's a lot of feeling and a lot of like romantic energy towards each other, but their lives just don't line up for it to work out. Now, that's just one potential. It can work in a relationship. It can work in a long-term relationship. I've had it in a long-term relationship. But what can also happen too is that the Venus person can kind of get the ick for the ascendant person at times. So, like, Venus is what we find pleasurable, what we find attractive, the qualities of our Venus placement. And so when someone's ascendant, which is like their physical self and how they project their energy out, and a big part of like what they look like too, is square to our Venus, there can be at times repulsion. Like they can feel repulsive to you. And, it could be also like other difficult aspects in the synastry, but I feel like Venus can kind of like get the ick. Yeah, like just feel like the ascendant at times is just not really their type, but at the same time, it's like their feelings can override that knowing of like, okay, this person isn't usually my type, but I'm gonna go for it anyways, kind of thing, right? So it's interesting how that happens, or how like you can have kind of this feeling of like almost feeling like the Venus can even feel like the ascendant is like not attractive, or like kind of ugly, or like the way that they dress, the way that they act, like it can just be very like gross to the Venus person. Now, this is at an extreme level, but like I have seen this, I have felt this. But if the rest of the synastry is good, Venus is still being activated by the ascendant. Venus still feels something, so they can still want to go for the ascendant. They can still want to flirt with them. They can still want to be with them. But at the same time, there can sometimes or half the time be like this kind of actual repulsion. And so the ascendant person um, can feel kind of mixed messages from Venus, right? They can feel like, oh, it feels like the Venus person really likes me, but at the same time, they can subtly feel, or maybe not so subtly at times, that also the Venus person maybe doesn't like them. And so this aspect can be very confusing for the ascendant person because um, they're just acting as their normal self and being their normal self, and getting all this weird energy from Venus, right? And because it's a square, they're kind of at each other with it. So it can definitely be very romantic and passionate in the sense that like um, there's definitely a buzz, there's definitely a lot of energy there. They definitely notice each other, but it does tend to go with this feeling of like, this is someone different than I'm used to, or this is someone not really my type, but I'm still attracted to them for whatever reason. There's still love there for whatever reason. And it can be a very creative aspect. You could see this aspect with people that are like artists together, or like musicians, like in a band together, because it creates a lot of creative energy, right? The square in synastry is potentially the most creative aspect. Like, so in a non-romantic relationship or friendship or a business relationship, you can really get a lot done in this contact, like creatively, especially. You could also be with this person a little bit more overindulgent. Venus could be a little bit more emotionally indulgent, like meaning, feelings like unworthiness could come up, feelings of jealousy could come up, there can be, yeah, a wide range of emotions coming up. And because it's a square, they can be perceived as negative. But, it's almost like with certain synastry aspects that you would rather have an aspect like this than no aspect to the person's Venus at all, right? Because at least like they're being activated, and ascendant squares are really not bad. Like I'm just describing this as I've experienced it and as I've read about it, but really my personal opinion on ascendant squares in synastry is that they are not bad. These are the least difficult squares out of any planet in synastry, because when we have a square to the ascendant, we can sometimes, depending on what house system you're using, if you're using equal house, for sure 100%, if you're squaring the ascendant, you're either conjunct to the IC, the fourth house cusp, or you're conjunct to the midheaven, the 10th house cusp. So there's still shared similarity, there's still shared mission when we have like these most personal point in the natal chart, or the most like inward internal emotional point is the IC, the fourth house. So if you have Venus in someone's fourth squaring their ascendant, you can feel bonded like your family even at times, but then at the same time, but the way the ascendant person acts can still be a bit off-putting or feel like they're not your type. Now with the 10th house conjunction, so let's say you've got Venus in someone's 10th conjunct to the midheaven, okay, then you're going to actually feel attracted to this person in the realms of their career and public image and like who they are, like socially, like kind of like their persona or maybe like their online presence or something. But then in the actual day-to-day relating when you're with them, their body, like there could still be a bit of like tension there with like the attraction, okay? So that's why I feel like squares to the ascendant are not bad. Like I said, I think they're the least difficult squares. But they're just, with Venus, squares to Venus, the Venus person can feel unloved. The Venus person can feel distaste when we have like this kind of square to Venus at times. So it it's definitely interesting to see. The ascendant person can feel attracted to Venus as well, but they can see the Venus as like maybe superficial or like, yeah, like not deep enough for them, or like it's really an interesting thing to see this happening in synastry, because you can tell, like you can see two people having this and it's like you can tell that they really like each other a lot, but there's just kind of a conflict in expressing it, and like there is like a personality conflict. They are pretty different. And yeah, Venus can like get a little bit turned off by the way the ascendant acts, like they're just not their type at times. And then the ascendant can feel that and then feel less comfortable around Venus than with different aspects to the ascendant. So it's really interesting. It's not all bad. There's this one book that I just got, and I don't totally agree with it, but it was just kind of interesting to get. It was called, it was from Amazon, The Top 10 Worst Synastry Aspects. And then she also has a book, I forget the author's name, but they're on Amazon. They're really cheap. Like they're pretty short, but like I read them like within a day. Like there's like the top 10 best synastry aspects and top 10 worst synastry aspects. And I don't agree with what she's written at all, but it's just really interesting to read. And I mean, maybe there is something to it, but she put this on the top 10 worst. And that was the reasoning, is basically that the Venus person doesn't find the ascendant attractive, and it causes a lot of conflicts or whatever. And like, I would not agree that this is the worst aspect, but she may have a point. This can be difficult, and it can be like how I described, like, yeah, love with nowhere to go, or Venus person kind of getting the ick for ascendant, and ascendant feeling unloved or unseen, you know? So yeah, but at the good part is there is a lot of feeling, there is a lot of attraction. It's kind of like an attraction repulsion, and there's a lot of creative energy. This is the most creative aspect between Venus and ascendant. Like they can create beautiful works of art together, and they can get along. It's not really an aspect of not getting along either. So I don't want it to sound like I'm saying that, because they do get along, and they can actually be like over accommodating to each other. When we have squares to Venus too, we can see people pleasing and things like that, right? So Anyways, I'd love to know your experience of this aspect. Was it like this? Was it not like this? Thanks for the request, you guys. Keep them coming. And yeah, let me know in the comments your experience of this aspect. Was it like this? Was it not? Let me know. I'm curious. Okay, talk soon. Bye.